This is Shelley Kraft coming to you live on SNNLive. We're at the LD Micro Invitational in Bel Air, California, 2014. I have with me David Cavalier of Aeolus Pharmaceuticals. The symbol, it's a publicly traded company, is AOLS. David, welcome to SNNLive.
Thanks, Shelley. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. So let's get right into Aeolus.
Sure.
Please give us a little overview for the audience.
Sure. Aeolus is a drug company that's developing treatments for exposure to radiation following a nuclear event under contract with the U.S. government. We have a 5-year, $118 million contract with the Department of Health and Human Services, and this year we're looking to get our drug 10150 close to potential procurement for the Strategic National Stockpile.
That's Homeland Security.
Well, it's not Homeland Security, it's actually the Department of Health and Human Services who's responsible for that. We also have funding from the National Institutes of Health for exposure to chemical gases and nerve gases. So we have a fairly diverse program of biodefense assets that's going right now.
What's your background?
My background is in finance. I started out at Goldman Sachs, and I actually control the largest shareholder in Aeolus Pharmaceuticals. So
from Goldman Sachs to Aeolus, what happened in between that made this be so exciting for you to want to join this?
Well, a few years ago, a good friend of mine that I've known since I was a child, he and I started a fund together to invest in biotechnology companies, and one of our investments was Aeolus. And as we became more interested in the opportunity here, I took on more and more of a direct role in the company, and now I spend all my time working on Aeolus.
So is this going to be a product that's going to be on the market relatively soon?
Well, our expectation is that we could be selling drug to the U.S. stockpile as early as fiscal year 2015. So that starts obviously at the end of this year for the U.S. government, and we're feeling fairly confident right now.
So is this part of the acceleration project? You know, the government has a tendency when they know they need something quickly, they give you, an advance of time that you don't have to go through a full-blown FDA approval, clinical trial, etc. I mean, I'm just asking.
No, it's a great question, and it's one that we get all the time. Actually, this drug will be developed under what's called the FDA animal rule, which allows you to use animal studies in the place of human studies because you can't ethically do human studies. And purchases are made prior, typically, to FDA approval using a mechanism called the emergency use authorization, which allows drugs to be used as if approved in a declared emergency. And that's typically been the path that BART has followed.
So in the period of time, let's say, that fallout happens, how fast does your drug act to save a person's life? I know it's hypothetical, but I might as well ask that question.
Sure. No, it's a great question. It's the question that the government asks too and requires. One of the requirements that the government has is the drug needs to be dosed at least 24 hours post-exposure. In our case, all our studies are done at least 24 hours after exposure to radiation, and we believe because of the mechanism, you could probably potentially give the drug a little bit later, and we're running some studies now to determine the optimal window of treatment.
How is the drug delivered? Orally, nasally, intravenously?
It's actually a subcutaneous injection, which in the case of radiation is a preferable form of administration. People like a pill, obviously, but when you're exposed to radiation, not only is there a great deal of nausea and vomiting, but you lose the lining of your GI tract sometimes, and it makes it difficult to absorb drugs. So sub-Q is a good administration.
So, in your viewpoint, how large a market could this possibly be?
Well, the biodefense market could be several $100 million. BARDA manages a $2.8 billion. I keep saying BARDA. They're the Division of Health and Human Services that's responsible for advanced development of medical countermeasures. They also manage a $2.8 billion fund for procuring drugs. So there's a large market that's available here. There's also foreign markets. You can imagine Japan, Israel, South Korea. France as well. I mean, these are all places that eventually we can go. I think our focus right now is the U.S. government.
I want to get your website out there for our audience. What is that?
Great. You can get more information on Aeolus at our website, which is www.aolsrx.com. That's our ticker symbol plus RX on the web.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Cavalier, Aeolus Pharmaceuticals, thanks for doing this. I mean, anything can happen. Publicly traded company, the symbol is AOLS. I'm Shelley Kraft. This is SNNLive. We're at the LD Micro Invitational here in Bel Air, California, 2014. David, thank you for coming on to SNNLive.
Thank you, Shelley.
Appreciate it. Good to have you.